All right, guys, quick review of taxation without representation. So remember, the whole idea about mercantilism is that the colonies are the ones who provide all the wealth to the home country, in this case, Britain. And after the French and Indian War, which Britain won, they had a lot of debt that they needed to pay off. And the British didn't want to pay it themselves, so instead they decided to tax the colonists. And so a few of the taxes that they created included the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, and the Townshend Act, which we're going to focus on for right now. So the Sugar Act was simply a tax on sugar. So it was a very high tax on producing and manufacturing and using sugar. And the colonists depended on sugar a lot, many of them for making rum, but also just for consumption. And so it was pretty painful for the colonists. They decided to protest. They didn't like it very much. And eventually the British repealed it. So they took that law away. They realized that it wasn't going to work. It was too difficult. The Stamp Act was an act that taxed any legal document, any sort of document, whether it was a newspaper or a set of playing cards, anything at all, needed to have a stamp on it, an official seal of approval from the British government, and it was a tax. So you had to pay it in order to have that stamp made. And the colonists, again, very upset about what was happening, so they decided to protest. Sorry, that's not working super well. They protested it. Eventually, the British decided, you know what, fine, we'll get rid of it. Worth it. The Townshend Act, a little bit more significant. This was a tax on all imports. So anything that the colonists brought in on ships from other countries had to be taxed. And that especially hit Massachusetts hard because that was like the trade hub of 13 colonies. And so the colonists, again, they protested. They were very, very upset. And the British responded by bringing in even more taxes and more difficult restrictions on the colonies, including the Intolerable Acts. That's what the colonists called them. And these are all steps that are leading toward the eventual outbreak of the American Revolution. So again, all of these pieces, what frustrated the colonists most is that they did not have representation in the British government. They weren't allowed to have a voice in the British Parliament. They couldn't express their concerns. They couldn't vote. So they were not allowed to voice their frustration, to make decisions about how the British government ran their business. So that's the idea of taxation without representation.